This is a Fox News alert right now. 2 hostages released by Hamas just yesterday are recovering at a Tel Aviv hospital. And moments ago, we heard from one of them about the terrifying experience.
My mom is telling the horrific stories. She's saying that many people, a swarm of people came through the fence. My mom is saying that she was taken on the back of a motorbike with her body, with her legs on one side and her heart on another side. That she was taken through the plowed fields with a man in front on one side and a man behind her.
All right. Meanwhile, this, as the world anxiously awaits the release of more than 220 hostages who are still being held captive by Hamas terrorists.
The IDF now announcing they hit more than 400 terror targets overnight, including Hamas tunnels and dozens of command centers.
Trey Yingst is on the ground in southern Israel. Trey, we just got the word about the release of the hostages in that press statement we heard earlier yesterday. And she describes the spiderweb tunnels. What can you tell us about those tunnels?
Yeah, guys, good morning. Absolutely. We're learning more from one of the first hostages to speak out about her experience inside the Gaza Strip after being taken on October 7th by Hamas militants. We know that's Yocheved Lifshitz, an 85-year-old who bravely talked about the terror that was inflicted on her and her husband, who is still being held inside Gaza. She was released overnight with another elderly woman from the community of Niroz and describes the tunnel system. But before that, she talks about how she was taken into Gaza on the back of a motorcycle, how people who were inside the strip, civilians, beat her. And then she was taken into the tunnel system and fed just one time a day. She said Hamas did provide them with some medicine and hygiene supplies, but she talks about what was clearly a terrifying experience for her and the other hostages as they were broken into groups and taken throughout the tunnels, held there beneath Gaza for more than 2 weeks. Now, we're getting this information as the Israelis continue their strikes against the Gaza Strip, but I do want you to listen to the daughter of one of these hostages who talks about her mother and the experience that she had.
It's very much hoping that all the people that were with her will come back, and the story is not over till everybody comes back and we can start building something.
The story's not over. You can hear the roar of Israeli fighter jets overhead. They are targeting the Gaza Strip while there are still 220 hostages being held in those tunnels. We have new video from the Israeli military of these explosions overnight. Also, attack helicopters along the border trying to take out as many Hamas and Islamic Jihad cells as possible. Again, 400 strikes overnight, a significant increase by the Israelis as they do expect they will continue to prepare for that ground operation into Gaza. You can hear along here, it's a very active front line in the south, and there is anticipation that this will continue to escalate in the days to come. Guys, back to you.
So Trey, in addition to what she said, you know, she went through this the spider web of tunnels, and eventually she came to a large hall, and there were 25 other people. So you would assume 25 other hostages as well. She said each of the hostages had a guard, and it looked as if they were preparing to be there for a long time. Because ultimately, don't you think this is Hamas's best play? This is the only thing they've got are these living hostages, these human shields.
Absolutely, and it's critical that we talk about this point because there will be some people who say, look, Hamas gave them some medicine and 1 meal a day. Look how nice they were. But that's not true. They were taken hostage against their will after their community was slaughtered. And in terms of why they gave them just a little bit of medicine and food, it wasn't to be humanitarian. It was to keep them alive so they could use them as bargaining chips against the Israelis as they continue to fire on southern and central Israel, understanding there's about to be a massive ground operation where Israeli forces will enter the Gaza Strip. We did learn a lot, though, from this hostage who is speaking out, this 85-year-old woman, so brave to do so, talking about the treatment of the people inside Gaza and also giving new details about that tunnel system, how it's a spider web beneath the earth. And remember, Hamas has had since 2007 to dig this tunnel system. And while the Israelis have destroyed the tunnels that have come into Israeli territory, they've only been able to bomb certain parts of Gaza because the tunnels are so deep below the ground. And just overnight, the Israelis say they are using bunker buster bombs to try and hit some of those tunnels. And Hamas claims that the Israeli strikes have killed 22 hostages since this war erupted 18 days ago. Now, we have no way to independently confirm that number because in the past, Hamas has lied about these types of things when they want to win the information war that is running parallel to this conflict.
So, Trey, it's being reported that Marine Corporal Lieutenant General James Glenn, he's a former commander of Marine Force Special Operations Command. He has been sent to Israel to counsel the IDF on current operations and the possibility of this ground incursion in Gaza. How does the IDF feel about that? Will they cooperate and they'll work together, or do they think America doesn't know our territories, they don't know our terrain, why are they sending someone to help?
This is a big indication that the Israelis and the Americans understand what's at stake here and the real possibility, the real likelihood that this turns into a regional conflict. Yeah. There is no need for American warships. There is no need for American fighter jets. There is no need for U.S. Marines to fight in Gaza. The Israelis have entered Gaza before. They know this territory well. These movements are not for Gaza specifically. They are for Hezbollah, the Iranian proxy in Lebanon. They are for Iranian proxies across the region and the regime itself in Tehran, because there's real intelligence that indicates the Iranians will be ramping up their attacks, not just against Israelis in the region, but also against U.S. efforts. We've already seen that. The attacks on U.S. bases in Baghdad, the attacks that are coming from Iranian-backed Iraqi Shia militias. And so the region is bracing for a much broader regional conflict, and that's why you are seeing the movement of U.S. military personnel and equipment to the Middle East. It's not just because of this southern front. It is a real understanding that this could unravel very quickly.
How much did yesterday's release of hostages play into the possible delay of game we're looking at? And add to that, today in the New York Times, it says the U.S. is worried that the IDF might not have an achievable plan for Gaza, and is urging them to be cautious and recalibrate.
It's a reasonable question to ask that they pose in that article. You can hear behind me, that's outgoing fire toward the Gaza Strip. But it's a reasonable question to ask because the Israelis, according to our information, will enter Gaza. They will launch a massive ground operation, and they will take casualties in the process. But once they're there for weeks and for months, as is anticipated, there is this question about what happens next. The Palestinian Authority doesn't have the organization or capability or even desire to control Gaza. The Egyptians don't want to control Gaza. And the United Nations doesn't want to control Gaza. And there are more than 2 million Palestinians, the majority of them civilians, innocent people that are living under the control of this brutal regime of Hamas. And the Israelis can't simply occupy Gaza because they'll face a growing insurgency that will be incredibly unpopular politically here and difficult to maintain. And so that's one question that's being posed right now. And the other question has to do with the timing of all of this. How long are the Israelis willing to wait before they enter Gaza? And we do understand there is pressure not only from the United States but from other regional players to have Israel pause their operations, to wait until they can try to get more, especially foreign nationals, out of Gaza. And last night is a bit of a glimmer of hope for the region. Although it was just 2 hostages, it shows these conversations are taking place. And outside players like the Qataris are able to cut deals, even if they're small deals, to get people out and to safety.
While Qatar plays both sides of the ledger. They house Hamas leaders and then come out as peacemakers trying to cut hostage deals.
The Qataris play an interesting role in this, and they traditionally have played a very interesting role. Even previously, when small rounds erupted between Israel and Gaza, that was an airstrike along the border, they play a role as a mediator. And so oftentimes they have ended conflicts between Israel and Gaza in the past by funneling money into the Strip for aid. Sometimes just monthly salaries for people inside Gaza, $100 a month, but it adds up, and the Egyptians aren't willing to pay that money. The Israelis can't deliver that money directly. And so previously, they were criticized for bringing the money in literal suitcases across the Erez crossing, the crossing very close to here. they changed that process. But the bottom line here is the Qataris have acted as a middleman between Israel and Hamas, and they've not just done it here. Remember, when we look back at Afghanistan, the Qataris were the ones who were able to negotiate with the Taliban when no one else could. And they were able to ferry messages from the Americans to top Taliban leadership to say, look, civilians need to get on these manifests and these flights out, and we need to ensure these planes won't get taken out of the sky. And so they're playing a similar role here. They are continuing to mediate behind the scenes, and they have to walk a tightrope here to deliver messages to Hamas leadership, but also be working with the Western world about getting civilians home safely.
Indeed. All right, Trey, thank you very much.
Thank you, Trey.